Welcome to another episode of the Profitable Home Services Podcast. Remember, this is the podcast where we help you uncover hidden profit leaks and not just uncover them, but we'd like to help you plug them as well. Because just uncovering isn't enough. It's our job to step up alongside you and help you with the implementation and the accountability that you need to actually plug those profit leaks and put that money back in your bottom line. With that, I'm your host, Diane Gardner, and I'm happy to have joining me today Ronald Beckner from, I just went blank, Integrity, Peaks Integrity. I'm so sorry about that. Peaks Integrity today. And he and I are going to be talking about a little slightly different topic than some of our others that we've talked about. So, with that, welcome, Ron.
Well, thank you very much, Diane. I really appreciate you having me on. I love the idea that you're talking about leaks and stuff because a little background on me, I'm a third generation pipe fitter welder. So I understand how if a pipe is leaking, it can really wreak havoc. And then also, I'm retired military, so I was a damage controlman and a hull technician in the Navy, and fixing broken pipes and leaks were something that we did all the time. So being able to control that environment, especially when it comes to our profitability, I think is key. So thank you again for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. And sorry about that mess up. I was looking at your financial star process in your background, and that just totally flipped me upside down on the business name. So sorry about that.
That's okay.
My eyes were reading one thing and my tongue was trying to say something else.
It's all good.
Anyhow, let's talk a little bit about kind of what you see when you're working with these blue collar guys. They work so hard and they're so good at what they do, but they struggle in certain areas of being in business.
And that's exactly right. That's really one of the key things that I like to help people with, and that's get educated on how money is just a tool. Because you're exactly right. I mean, I worked over 20 years in the piping industry. I did 24 years in the military, four active Navy, four active Coast Guard, and then 16 years Naval Reserve. So I worked two jobs for 16 years. And I can tell you, when I was in the trades and I was in the military, they taught me how to do the job safely. They taught me how to do it efficiently. I mean, I was everything from a superintendent right down to an apprentice. I could do jobs really well, but nobody ever taught me how to use money as a tool. And that's really what I'm trying to do is get that education out there to folks just like our business owners that you talk to every day. And that's why I wrote my book, A Blueprint and Financial Guide for the Working Class American, because I felt like my clients were getting really good information on understanding how money is just a tool. But there are so many people out there that just have no idea about it. So I really take that educational approach with people because we don't know what we don't know. And you look at the business owners that you're working with all the time, I mean, they know how to do their job really well,
And they're
right?
good
And
at it.
that's what
Yes.
your whole key is to teach them how to even be more profitable and maybe point out a couple of things that they may have missed or overlooked, or they can actually they're doing, but now they can do it even better because they've got a better understanding because they get more educated in that area. And that's really what I'm trying to do. So my financial star process that kind of mesmerized you when you were doing the introduction for me, that really is the process. I'm trying to make people what I call a financial star. And there's 5 points on that star, and we really have a good foundation with the our time formula. And, my dad, because like I said, I'm third generation pipe fitter, on the very first leadership job I had where I was a foreman, my dad was a general foreman. He told me, he said, son, if you give people time, they can build the world. But time is an acronym, Diane. It stands for tools, information, material, and equipment. And if you're missing any one of those four elements, it's nearly impossible to get the job done.
And I see
And
that with
yeah,
so many home service businesses, they haven't really fleshed out their systems. They just say, hey, Joe, go do whatever. And Joe heads out to go do whatever he's been told to do, but nobody told him what that expectation was. So Joe comes back to the shop, all right, all done. Then they get a call from the homeowner, may possibly not as happy as they should be with what Joe just did,
Yep,
because nobody ever explained to Joe that what that project should look like, which is part of your time, giving him the tools, the
yep. The
information,
information,
all
right?
those pieces that they need. Yeah.
That's exactly right. Yeah, there's got to be that clarity, and we need to have it within ourselves. And then I went and added an R to the time because the clock only goes one way. Time is real, right?
Hmm.
And
Yes.
I think that that is a key component. The tools are basically your knowledge of whatever industry that you're specializing in, your business, because you're running it. You've got the tools, right, in your
Correct.
head.
Uh-huh.
You understand it. And the people that you hire during your interview process, you're making sure they have the tools too. Now, the information is going to be specific to whatever job you're sending these people out to do or whatever you're doing. And we got to make sure that the information is very clear. The example that you just talked about, it sounded like the information wasn't clear because they may have had all the material they needed, they may have had all the equipment to do the installation or whatever it was, but they lacked the information, and
Yes.
that's why the homeowner was calling because something got missed. There was something not clear. And I think that is key. If it's equipment that they're missing or material that they're missing, that's where you, as the business owner, with your knowledge as well as
Mhm.
the information, need to make sure they're covered. It just totally makes sense, doesn't it?
It does, yes. And I see it play out constantly, day after day, as I'm working with home service business owners, that they're frustrated and they can't understand why their team isn't doing whatever it is you want them to do. And they're like, I'm just so sick and tired of babysitting these guys. And when you actually peel back all the layers,
Yep.
that employee may not have been given clear directions. And
It's funny. That reminds me of a story when I was in the Coast Guard. I had a guy that was my leader, my shop boss, and he was actually the division leader. And when he would say, "Okay, here's what I want," I used to take a piece of paper sometimes and say, "Okay, just so I'm clear, please write down exactly what you're looking for." And I was never wrong, right? He was very clear with his instructions. Then I had it in writing and I knew step by step exactly what needed to happen. And, that right there, I think helps in a communication process. And maybe that's all we need to do is just kind of narrow down how can we be more specific about the information that we're trying to convey? Because we can supply the material, we can supply the equipment. We already know that they've got the tools, i.e., the knowledge to do
right,
this.
yeah.
Maybe it's the information that we have to be clear on.
I think sometimes we're guilty, and I'm going to use some air quotes here of quote, drive-by delegating. I see
Yep.
you away. Can you take care of it for me? And you just keep right on going. You
Right.
miss a beat, you're on to your next meeting or your next call or whatever it is. And you're like, okay, I've asked Ron to take care of it. He's got it. We'll be fine. And Ron's like, I'm not exactly sure what she just asked for. I guess I'll
Right.
go see if I can figure it out.
That's right. That's
And then we're
exactly right.
upset because they didn't get the result that they wanted. So
So
drive-by delegating is very dangerous.
that's right. That's exactly right. So, kind of getting into the profitability aspect of that,
Mhm.
if your information's not clear and now your person has to go back twice,
Twice, you bet.
who's paying for that? That's definitely digging in the profitability of the company because
Making
you
sure.
really only bid that job for them to go there once,
Yeah, it's a
right?
big yes. And so now your job has blown up on you, and you're wondering why you can't seem to make any money on these kinds of jobs.
That's right.
And not
That's exactly
realizing
right.
that part of it was clear back when those original instructions were given. They weren't clear.
So, again, I'm going to kind of go back to my financial star process because it's my R time formula that I really set that baseline on. And this is where I like understanding the people that I'm working with because I want to understand the form and formula. So I want to know about their family, right? Because remember, we all have a family. Whether we're business owners, we're the employees, or whatever, we've got a family that we're doing this for more often than not, right? We're doing it for ourselves, but we've got the family that we're providing for. And maybe the family is part of that group. Maybe they're helping us with that business as well. And there again, where the knowledge and information, right? The tools, information, material, and equipment, because they're part of that process to make sure it all happens. But that's where the O, family, occupation, I want to understand the business. I want them to
Mhm.
understand their own business, what they've done or what they're doing. And then the material, I'm sorry, the R is recreation because all work and no play make us dull people. We got to have a little bit of fun. I don't care if it's watching movies, read books, or go out fishing and hunting and camping or, going out and playing ball or watching sports. It doesn't matter. We got to do something for fun. And I like to know that. And people have to have that knowledge too, right? They have to have that balance. It's a life work
You do.
balance.
Yep.
And then the material's just money, right? M is for money, and money's just a tool. So this is where I really start working with people, and that gives me my foundation right here on my first point of the star. From there, I like moving to the second point of the star, and that's where I start talking to people about taxes, their budget, because a lot of times the budget process is where people kind of miss the boat, right? Because we can make, here's our monies that we make, but we're spending this much. And if we're overspending, we've got to get a budget and we got to get that under control because money is
And
just a tool, and understanding how to control that tool first and foremost. Because as soon as it's controlling you, man, it's like you're chasing your tail all the time, right? You can't stay in business if you're losing money on every single job.
no, no, you can't sell your way out of that problem.
You never can.
No.
And if you try and raise your prices, you can price yourself right out of the market, right? So you just got to be really aware of how you're budgeting, not just your money, but also your time. That goes back to that work-life balance, right?
And I
So
think a
budget,
lot of
go
I
ahead.
think a lot of the home service business owners don't really understand that budgeting process. It's not
Right.
comfortable. It's not their primary language. It's a third or a fourth language out there for them. And so they struggle with it. It's a bunch of numbers on a spreadsheet, and they may not be spreadsheet savvy, like a nerd like myself who lives on spreadsheets.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
And so
Yep.
it becomes a scary process. And so it gets put off and put off and put off because there's always something more important that needs to get done.
And
They
you
have
know,
big
and that
intentions.
Yeah. And people can get caught in the details of that, but the best thing to do is just go straight to the bottom line, right? And if you've got a red number on that bottom line because you've overspent versus the black number, that's where you got to go back and just work
Yep.
yourself backwards and say, okay, where are those discrepancies? Because it's not everything, right? There are things that we've got to spend money on. There are things that we do have to run our business. We all understand that. But what we have to do is try and find that control area, right? Because if you're the business owner, you're the ones with the tool. I'm going back to that, right? To understand where that control. And you're the one with the information for each job. Even though we don't like those spreadsheets, just go straight to the bottom number, see where the red or the black is. And if it's black, now we're talking profit, right? And that's a good thing. Then it's how do we distribute that profit? Do we roll it back into the business? Do we put it in our pocket as a business owner? Do we put some in our pocket, share some with our people? Or does it just give us time to really go after bigger, badder, better jobs? It really starts falling into place in my mind.
Right. Yes. And there's somewhat of a formula that can be used to determine how much of it do you need to stay in the business, how much can you take out? Because if you take it all out, you have a business that's just gasping for air because it needs
That's
that
right.
fuel to roll.
That's right.
And
And
yeah,
we all
it's
know what
hard
it's
to do
like to
that.
live paycheck to paycheck, right? And if a business is running paycheck to paycheck, you're exactly right, man. You're constantly gasping for air, and it
Yeah.
turns into kind of panic mode sometimes. And nobody wants to work with a panicked business owner, right?
No. Then you start losing your key people because now they don't feel secure in their jobs
Yeah,
and that snowball just takes off rolling down the hill.
right. So now let's talk about that bottom line. And this goes back to my taxes point, right? I always say, especially as a business owner, try and have a really good tax professional, right? What I'm trying to do with this process is to build that team around you. As a financial advisor, a working class American that has that background and a financial advisor, that's one of the things that I like to see. I'm one of those team members that we want to start surrounding you with because you're busy running your own business and trying to be profitable, trying to get to the level that you desire to be at, but you've also got to have a good numbers person, right? And this is where the investment people come in. This is where your tax professional come in because they may have ideas and probably should have ideas to
Mhm.
help you understand what to do with those profits, how to retain profits, how to distribute profits, how to make it even more profitable, your profits. And then the tax person is showing you how to do things above the law, right? Because I've t- this right here, the tax guide, US Master Tax Guide. They change it every single year.
Every year.
That's where those tax professionals are educated and can help you, right? They're going to be the people with the information and they receive material every year in their office, which is their equipment, to
Mhm.
keep you up to speed so you can be profitable.
And I think it's important to just take just a pause there and let people realize that when you're building this financial team, it will cost you a little bit of money for their services, but they're not an operating expense. They're an investment in the future profitability and success of your business. So I think
Yep.
sometimes they get to thinking about, oh, it's going to cost me, X amount if I call my accountant or my attorney or whatever. But that's some of the best money you can spend because you need that strong financial team around you, especially when finances and financials and numbers and stuff is not a primary language for you.
That's exactly right. I mean, I even put this in my book. Why do you think the wealthy keep getting wealthier every generation? Right? They've already surrounded themselves with a team. And just because we're working class Americans doesn't mean that we can't do the same thing. And
Correct?
it,
Yes.
and it's something that I put in my book too. We may not have as many zeros behind our numbers as the wealthy or ultra wealthy, but if we do exactly what they've been doing for generations, the result will be the same for us. I mean, just think about this, Diane. If we can add just one zero to our number, just one zero,
Yep. That could be life changing.
thank you. That's exactly what I tell people. And we can't get there based on our own knowledge. We're busy running the company. We're busy working. We're busy just trying to do what we have to do to get everything by. That's why we need those team members. And you're exactly right. It is an investment. And that's what you have to look at it as.
An investment that should yield some return on that investment for you, based
Bingo.
if you've got a good team surrounding
Yep.
you.
And if you don't, you find somebody that is good, right? If you
Yep.
don't feel it's just like an employee, right? If you've got an employee that's not producing, they're not doing it, it turns into two can'ts. I'm sorry. You can't do it. You can't stay. That's what my dad always used to say.
Sounds like your dad was a wise man.
He really was. He really was. I mean, he had his issues, but I'll tell you, he really did have his poop in a group when it came down to, some real what I would like to say common sense
Right.
and understanding how things worked, right? And one of the biggest reasons that I want people to understand their taxes is because when you look at what's happening in this country, and we've got to understand the basics of the game we're playing, right? Because if you ever played a game that you didn't know the rules to, did you
It'd be
ever win
hard.
that game, Diane?
No, no.
No, absolutely not. So this is where I start getting to the education factor, I should say, when I'm working with people. So there are four tax quadrants that we have to deal with and three buckets of money. And we, as the employee and the small business owner, we're going to pay the high taxes, right? We pay the highest taxes because that's how the system's built.
Yep.
If
Yep.
you
The
have
middle class.
500 employees or more, you pay a little bit less, but the investor pays the least. And the reason that I can say that is if you're a small business owner, that's what you're investing in. So I can use myself as an example. Me and my wife, we own our business. So we pay ourselves a W 2 wage and we pay the highest taxes there. But then, as an investor in our small business, we pay ourselves quarterly dividends. And quarterly dividends, if I'm in the highest tax bracket, I get a 17% tax break on those dividends that I pay myself every quarter for that income. That's huge, right?
Yep.
And if we can understand that, because we've got a good tax person and they're teaching us how we can do that, now that gives us a leg up. That is an investment. Oh, wait a minute. I saved myself 17% on the income that I just paid myself versus just paying myself as a W 2 wage. Now I'm a business owner getting a tax break. My tax person just paid for themselves, right? Just with that little bit of information. And then we
Let me
got
start
to and then we got to
before you go
understand.
forward. Yeah,
Go
hold on
ahead.
just one second. Just for our listeners, what he's talking about in that tax savings is the difference when you're paying Social Security, Medicare, unemployment tax, all those types of taxes that we pay on W-2 wages versus when we pay tax on the net profit coming out of our business. And this is assuming you're being taxed as an S Corp in this particular example. So that's what he's talking about on that 17% savings. Just wanted to make a little clarification there.
Exactly. And
So,
depending on, the income level, right? It can be because the highest taxes you'll ever pay on those qualified dividends is going to be 20%. The next one down is 15%, and the next one down is zero. So, depending on the amount of money you're making as a W 2, there can be some real astronomical profits for you and tax breaks if you can understand these four basic rules of the game.
and if you're working with a proactive tax planning accountant like myself.
Bingo. And then there's the three buckets of money, right? There's the taxable, and those are just exactly what we talked about. It's your paycheck, it's the dividends, it's your savings, it's even a brokerage account if you have it. The next one is the tax deferred. So if you have set yourself up with a traditional IRA or even a 401k because your business has the opportunity to do that, that's tax deferred dollars, which comes off of your taxable income, right? So now, as an investor, you're not paying tax on that income because you're putting it in a tax deferred bucket. And then the third bucket is tax free. I love tax free, right? And we just saw what they called the big, beautiful bill just got passed. And they're saying right now that the tax brackets that are currently in the system are now indefinite. But I'm
But
going to say this.
don't hang your hat
Go,
on it.
yeah, here's
Yeah,
the caveat. Go to usdebtclock.org and just look at those numbers, right?
yep.
And when you see $37 trillion dollars and that clock ticking, and every 30 seconds it adds $100,000, you got to start letting your common sense kick in, going, can these tax brackets really sustain these kind of numbers?
Not without some major cuts in our
Bingo.
government.
And
Yeah.
that's exactly what I put in my book, too. I mean, we got to kind of do a little history lesson here, Diane. I don't know if people understand or even know what the highest tax bracket in this country, what it was and when it was. Do you know?
It's going to be back in the, let's say, is when we were funding the war,
It was
coming
after
out of the
World War
war.
II.
Yes, World War II, coming right out of there was the highest bracket, and it was as high as 90%, depending on where you were income wise.
Yeah, 94% exactly is what it was. Now, that's the highest
Awful.
tax bracket,
Yeah.
right? That would be right now, because it was $200,000 in 1944. So that would be like $3.8 million a year today. That's not us, right? We're
No.
working class
Yep.
Americans. So if we kind of back up the truck and say, okay, what did the average working class American or even business owner at that time pay in taxes? It was between 42 and 52% on their
And
wages.
we're half of that right now. Yeah.
OMG, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And that's because we had a high deficit. And when you look at the numbers right now, the working class American has always been the backbone of this country to dig us out of the holes that the government puts us in. And for us to think that taxes aren't going to go up, in my mind, I think we're fooling ourselves. I think we're
Yeah.
not being truthful with our own brain, right?
Yeah. So
Especially when you look at the numbers.
enjoy the rates we have today because they
And
have to go up.
right. And take advantage of them, right?
Yes.
I think that's the key. You got to take advantage of them. And you got to do it in a strategic manner. And that's where the financial advisor and the good tax professional comes in.
Hmm.
And then we drop down to my goals point of the star. So with the goals, we got to think about long-term goals. We got to think about short-term goals. Sometimes a short-term goal is just paying off a credit card. It's paying off, college loans. It's paying off a car. It's paying off your house. But a long term goal is starting to get into retirement to me. And maybe paying off the house is a little bit of a long term goal too, right? It's just going to depend on who you are because we're all different and we all have to look at our ways and means, so to speak. And that's where I come in and understanding that tax deferred bucket and the tax free bucket. Because back in 2019, the Secure Act came out, and this is where we got to understand how much money the government will allow you to put in a tax deferred bucket and or a tax free bucket and understanding what is available because the government really wants all your money to be in the taxable bucket. That's really where they want it. They would love you to have it in the tax deferred bucket as well, but I think we need to understand the rules there so we can understand what our limitations should be for ourselves based on who we are and what our needs are, not just for today, but in the future, when we really are going to need an income, when we either can't or don't want to be working anymore in our business. I hope this is making sense.
Oh, definitely for me, but then I speak tax as my one of my first languages. So
Okay.
hopefully for our listeners, it's making sense as well.
Well, very good. Very good. And it's nobody's going to learn it in one sitting, right?
No, no,
And
this
that's
stuff
why I
takes a
try.
long time to
Yeah.
get comfortable with it.
No, you got it. And that's why I tell people, visit with your tax people more than once a year. Visit with your financial people more than once a year.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to do it quarterly. Don't be
Well,
afraid to do
have
it
those,
monthly at the beginning so you can
yeah,
really get your head around it.
have those conversations. Yes. I
Yeah.
practically beg some of my clients to have those conversations with me. It's hard to
And
get
and
them to
it's
stop and do it because
yeah,
they're
and that's
busy.
crazy,
Uh,
right? I mean, this is an investment in themselves. And all you're trying to do is make sure they stay on track, right? And that's an accountability process. People work with us. We surround ourselves with that team. And this is where the accountability process comes in. And I'm telling you, that's how we become successful. We, as business owners, if we've got somebody helping us be accountable for what's going on, just like we keep our people accountable for what's going on in our business, man, that's success. It might be a hidden success till all of a sudden the profitability kicks in
right.
and you're reaping the rewards of that success.
And I know that's a hard one because people can't always see it in the bottom line quickly. It's one
And
of those things that takes some time
that's
before
right.
it shows up. And in
Well,
today's microwave society, they want it in 30 seconds, and it doesn't
that's
work that way.
and that's exactly what I was just going to say. We have been conditioned to want it now, right? I
Yep.
want it and I want it now. Well, Veruca Salt, guess what? Sometimes we're just going to have to wait, right?
Sometimes you got to put it in the slow cooker and let it cook for all day long.
There you go. But I
So,
can tell
yeah.
you this, understanding it, waiting for it, and when it hits, it is so satisfying and gratifying to know that there's a huge accomplishment. And once you can get your head and heart and mind around that, it's going to be amazing what you'll be able to do going forward
Mhm.
because it'll change your life. It really will.
And I always tell people it's those 1%, those 2% small changes that we do in our businesses and even in our personal lives.
Yep,
If we make those and we do them consistently over time, they turn into huge changes. But
that's
you
right.
don't see it today. You have
No,
to consistently keep working it, keep making the right choices, keep, doing what you're supposed to be doing, eat those vegetables, type of thing, and your business will start changing and
that's
that
exactly
profit will
right.
start increasing and you'll start understanding the numbers in your business. You'll start understanding how your taxes work, but it's one small piece at a time.
Bingo. That's exactly right. And that's what I teach people too. That's why there's 5 points on this star. It's not just a 1 point and one size fits all because we're all different. And that's why I break these up. And then in each point, there's a whole nother gamut of things to discuss, right?
Mhm.
I mean, you're listening to me talk about my goal point, but I've already talked about the three buckets of money that are in those goals and understanding it. But the Secure Act is really huge because if you put money in a deferred bucket and your spouse gets it, now it becomes their deferred bucket. But if a non spouse inherits that deferred bucket, the Secure Act, in its infinite wisdom, says, and I'll just say your children, for example, if they inherit that deferred bucket, they have to have that bucket depleted in 10 years or less because the government wants their money. And if all of a sudden, every year they take money out of that, it adds to their taxable income. At their job, they're being taxed at a higher rate too, because now they're in a higher tax bracket. So these are things to consider, and this is where the strategies come in and understanding it, right? Those rules don't apply to a tax free bucket like a Roth, right? And there's other things that you can look at there. But we have to understand that you will be taxed on it now. Well,
Right.
based on everything I'm seeing, Diane, we're in the lowest tax bracket of our lifetime. How
Right.
long it will last, I don't know. But
No,
I
yeah.
think it's going back to looking at the numbers of usdebtclock.org and understanding what does our heart and brain tell us to do, and let's start making some strategic moves with the tool called money, especially with our profits and understanding where we're putting it and how we're working it.
Wow. You've just covered a lot.
In one little point.
And one little pretty picture of a star for anybody who's just listening online. It's such a simple
Exactly.
little star.
Yeah. Then from there, I move on to the protection because, when we think about it, we're all human and we aren't going to be here forever. So I do like to protect life. And there are different things that I talk to about people, especially as a business owner or if you have a business partner, right? And the business partner could be your spouse, it could be a friend, it could be an actual business partner that you guys have done something with. But remember, if you're no longer here, how do things move on? Have you truly set something up to make sure that everything's going to be taken care of? And it's maybe you're still around, but you're unable to work. So not only do I like to protect life, but I like to protect your health. So when I talk about life insurance, there I said the words, right?
Oh
And
no.
people get weird about life insurance. And I wish that we could change the word to living insurance because this is where that protect your health comes in. If you lose two of the six activities of daily living, I want you to be able to use the death benefit for your care. And that's 100% tax free dollars. So, Ron, what are the six activities of daily living? I'm a simple guy, Diane. Here's how I remember them, okay? When I wake up in the morning, I can transfer my own body out of bed. I get out of bed all by myself. Nobody has to lift me up and put me in a chair and wheel me anywhere. The next thing I do is I head straight to the bathroom. I get to go all by myself. Then, because I got to get in the office, I jump in the shower. I bathe myself. When I get out, I do my own toiletries. That means I dry my body off. I brush my teeth. I comb my hair. I put on deodorant. I shave. Then I dress myself and then I feed myself. If I can't do two of those six activities all by myself, I get to use up to 24% of that death benefit every single year for my care, 100% tax free. That's what I
That's really
like.
huge for somebody else.
You don't have to die for somebody else to benefit from those
Mhm.
dollars, right? And then the third thing is I like to protect wealth because in a certain type of life insurance policy, you can grow cash. And
Yep.
this is what the wealthy have been using for generations. There's a book out there called What Would the Rockefellers Do? And I think that is a really good read because it talks about how the Rockefellers, for generations, right? We're talking over 100 years, have been able to make each generation wealthier and wealthier and wealthier. And they do it through a tax free strategy, right? And that's through life insurance. But in the right type of setting, not only are you protecting wealth from down markets, you can also protect them from taxes in the way that you can get cash out of them tax free. And that's a strategic move too. A lot of moving parts in this. You've got to work with a good financial person to understand these products, but that's where the tools, information, material, and equipment that I use comes in, right? And it's all about education, right? Don't do anything unless you really feel comfortable about it. And I tell people when you're dealing with life insurance, realize this is a till death do us part. So I'm very clear and very educational when it comes to these. And then try not to use what I call a life insurance salesman. Use somebody that's going to visit with you on that every single year to make sure that it is on track, that it is doing what you expected it to do when you first purchased this product so you can understand it. There's also annuities. That's another insurance product where you can set up yourself a personal pension. And sometimes as a business owner, that's what we want. Because when we can't or don't want to work anymore, we would like to be able to have that dollar amount coming in guaranteed every single month for the rest of our life. Even if the value that we put in goes to zero, you're still going to get a paycheck based on the ones that I like to show people because I think that's really important. I mean, we already have Social Security, which is just like its own little personal pension, right? But we can't live on Social Security alone, Diane. It should
No.
only be about 40% at most of our retirement income. And going back to that US debt clock, it's already, and I've heard this from a whole lot of folks, if they don't fix this by 2035, they will cut Social Security by 25%, whether you're
Wow.
taking it or not, as well as Medicare. So we have to really start thinking about how to protect ourselves. Because if we expect the government to really help us, I'm not sure that's the right business partner we want to deal with in the long run.
Wow, Ron, this has been great. Thank you for sharing all this data with us. We've now come to the time in the program where I get to ask the magic question. As you have been working with home service businesses, what's a hidden or unique profit leak that you see when you work with these guys?
You know, I usually see people not looking at that bottom line and understanding where their leaks are, right? We got to think about how to make a business profitable and really understanding our numbers, right? Going back to the time, taking our knowledge and information that's laid out in front of us based on that, whether it's a spreadsheet, whether we're doing it in a logbook or whatever, there's our material, the equipment. We've got to put that all together and really understand how profits come in. And then we need to use that tool called money, those profits, and put it in the places that are going to perform at its best levels. And that may be putting it right back into the business or taking some of it, putting it into the business, taking some of it, maybe putting it in something tax deferred for us and or maybe even our employees if that's something that you do. But remember, as a business owner, that's an investment opportunity for you to pay less taxes based on who you are and what the professional you're working with is helping you do. So I think there's opportunities abound, but a lot of us just overlook it, Diane, right?
They do, yes, because they don't understand it.
Yeah. And, I just want to kind of wrap up too, because the fifth point of the star is legacy. And we've got to have an attorney to make sure that all of our legal documents are set up. And that's where, as business owners, again, we have to understand what we've got to take care of. Going back to form, our family. We got to make sure that our family's taken care of, but then our business, occupation, we've got a obligation there to our family and the people that are working with us, whether it be the clients or our actual employees, to make sure that things, if we are no longer here, are going to be taken care of in whatever manner that we can hopefully do, right? And that in itself can create profits, right? Because a business can be profitable based on the strategies that we use long term and or short term. Did that answer the question?
Pretty much, yes. Thank you. How
You're
can
welcome.
how can our listeners find out more about you if they
Well, that's
so
a great
desire?
question. Thank you. You can go on my website, and that's peaks-integrity.com. That's my website right there. You can always email me at ron at peaks-integrity.com. And if you guys call and talk to me, I will send you one of my free books, A Blueprint and Financial Guide for the Working Class American. It is available on Amazon. It's right here. And I will, if you mention this profit, I don't want to say website, this is a podcast.
The Profitable Home Services
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah. If you mention this podcast, I will send you a free book, and I don't charge anything to talk. But again, a blueprint and financial guide for the working class American. It's available on Amazon. And for those who do a lot of windshield time, it's available on Audible. It's a real quick
Great.
listen, 2 hours, 22 minutes. It's just fabulous. So call me or text me
All righty. Thank you
or
so much,
email
Ron,
me.
thank you for joining us on this episode today.
Well, thank
For
you,
our
Diane.
listeners, yes, our listeners, just that reminder, it's not how much money is sitting in your top line revenue. It's how much of that you actually get to keep that is so important, which is why we're always talking about profit leaks, how to find them, how to plug them, uh, finding them in unique places that you may not be thinking about. So, thinking constantly everything we do, will this increase my bottom line profits or not? So, if you're finding value in this podcast, please like and subscribe. We just love it as our subscriber numbers are climbing, both in all the normal audio channels as well as our YouTube channel. So, thank you so much for that. And if you would like help identifying profit leaks and building out your pricing and your service structure so that you can have sustainable, profitable growth, please reach out to me. I'd love to help. I also have free books I'm willing to send you, as well as a lot of other resources. So please reach out and let's get you dialed in so we can maximize your profits. With our group coaching programs, our Profit Amplifier program, you get to join a group of other like minded home service businesses as we continue to work throughout the 7 stops on the roadmap to profitability in your business. So reach out to us. We'd love to have that conversation. And once again, thank you, Ron, for joining us. And we're going to call this one a wrap. Talk to you later. Bye bye.
Bye bye.